Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap, and joining me today, a new guest to the podcast. You've never heard him here. I don't think you've never heard him on the Sirius show. He's a new face that I'm loving to get to put with the Twitter avatar. His name is Nate Hamilton. You can find him on Twitter at DominateFF. He is the fantasy football analyst over there at the Game Day NFL, which is the outfit where great friend of the program, Marcus Mosier, is currently doing a lot of his work. He's also the co-author of the last 4 seasons of the Fantasy Black Book, a very popular preseason fantasy publication. Nate, what the hell's going on, brother?
Hey, man, thanks a lot for having me, Alex. I appreciate it. I follow you guys a ton. I'm a big fan of the show, so I'm glad to finally be on it.
Awesome, man. Well, it's great to put a name with a face and get to know you, man. We were talking a little bit before we went on, and you said actually that I just made my 11th pick in Scott Fishbowl, so I know that I'm halfway through, and as usual, I hate my team. Scott Fishbowl has a lot of unique scoring settings, and every year I come into it and I'm just like, Jesus, I have all this thinking I need to do about our redraft stuff and getting the content up, and I have a plan. I have a plan for redraft leagues. I have a plan right now. I could go through and draft a team that would be perfectly tailored to the way that I see value falling. And then Scott Fishbowl comes in and just throws it all out the window and says, all right, we're gonna make tight ends get a point per first down, and we're gonna all the rest of this stuff. We're gonna ding quarterbacks 4 points for interceptions, 6 for pick sixes. We're going to let you start however many of whatever flex you want, et cetera, et cetera. You can even put a kicker in the flex. A million different things to worry about. How did you handle it? Let's hear. I'll tell you. You go. You show me yours, and then I'll show you mine, because I'm sort of embarrassed by my team thus far. I'm not sure that the strategy that I took has really been too fruitful. So
I'm picking from the 112 spot, and I really wanted to pair a top running back with Darren Waller, who was there for me.
And we tell the audience why you're thinking, because people on this show, they've heard a lot of redraft stuff. Why are you thinking about taking Darren Waller at the 1-2 turn?
Well, as you pointed out, so the Scott Fishbowl has a lot of crazy rules to it. So it's a tight end premium league, which means tight ends get extra half points per catch. So they get a full point per catch, with everyone else getting half point. Mm-hmm. And, I think they actually get extra points for first downs as well. So
yes.
This scoring format heavily favors tight ends. So that's why I knew Travis Kelce would be gone by the time the 12th pick comes. So I'm eyeing Darren Waller, but at heart, I love running backs. So both Zeke Elliott and Nick Chubb were sitting there, and I'm like, who do I pick? But to pair with Darren Waller, and then at some point, I'm just like, you know what? I can't decide between these two, so I just drafted both running backs.
No, that would have been hard for me to get away from too. So you start out with Nick Chubb. You start out with Zeke. Do you like Zeke this year? We're big on Zeke. He feels like one of the safer picks in the first round.
I love Zeke Elliott this year. Think about what he did last year. He still finished as a top 12 running back in a terrible year, and I'll put that in quotes, and a terrible year for him.
Right.
And obviously, Dak Prescott is a big reason for that offense to be as successful as it has. And even, obviously Dak went out early last season, but Zeke had some of his best games when Dak was at quarterback. So now we're getting Dak back. Zeke is, we're seeing all these videos of him, and I don't even need to see that stuff. But he's looking like the best shape of his life. Obviously, That's what they say about all of them. But he's gonna crush this year. So yeah, absolutely worth the pick.
He's still young. I was looking at it. I think he's still only 25, and this is the first year that this is his first year in his new contract.
Right.
I mean, as good as Tony Pollard is, and as much as everybody in the fantasy industry wants to make that whole thing happen, I don't think that the Cowboys are going to make that whole thing happen unless their hand is completely forced. And the fact is, that if they could have maybe foreseen a situation where Tony Pollard would be used on the field at the same time as Ezekiel Elliott was prior to last season or prior to last year's, not this last draft, but the draft before.
Yeah.
The fact that you could blame the Atlanta Falcons for it, for those idiots. They took AJ Terrell. They passed on CeeDee Lamb. They let CeeDee Lamb drop to the Cowboys. All of a sudden, the Cowboys can get 3 of these wide receivers on the field at the same time. There's just not a place to put any 2 running back sets when you have Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, all those guys all healthy. So with Pollard, I think it's going to take Zeke kind of getting hurt. I don't. We were talking about this on the last podcast, Nate, and like whenever you look at the first round of these drafts, and I know this wasn't on the sheet I sent you with topics, but just
let's talk, man.
Whenever you look at it, it's like you can find fault or you can find something that you don't like about, like even starting at Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he's coming off a major injury. When's the last time we saw a pick 1.0, a consistent 1.01 pick coming off a major reconstructive injury? Dalvin Cook has his own injury history. He feels relatively safe, but he has an injury history. Alvin Kamara, there's no more Drew Brees, who even knows what's going on with the quarterback situation. Saquon Barkley coming off injury. Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Marlon Mack is coming back. Naheem Hines is still there. Who knows if that's going to Aaron Jones, who's the quarterback even going to be? Who's like all these guys, man. But with Zeke, the only thing that you really have where you say, him and Derrick Henry are 2 of the guys where you can say, well, what really is that much different? What is there not to like? What is there not to like about this? And I think with Zeke, the thing that's not to like is people have this impression in their mind from last year of Zeke kind of not being Zeke, but the offensive line was wrecked. They had bad quarterback play after Dak got hurt. Everything was completely derailed last season. This year, if we get back to peak Zeke, man, I think it's big time. I think that's a good 1-2 turn for you, Zeke and Chubb. I mean, we talked about Derrick Henry and Zeke being safe outside of the Kareem Hunt worry with Chubb. He's kind of one of the ones that you worry about least as well, because he's proven week in and week out, despite the fact that he was, I think, hurt for 4 or 5 games last year.
Yep.
When he was healthy, even alongside Kareem Hunt, he's fine. he gets it done. So I like the start, but are you going to get swindled on quarterback or tight end? What happened at the 3-4 turn?
So, all right, so this is even different too. There's a 3rd round reversal.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I ended up with the 301 after I picked the 201.
That's right.
301, and I took the first wide receiver. And to me, the number 1 wide receiver in 2021 is going to be Stephon Diggs. That's my rankings. Okay. So I had to go Stephon Diggs there. So and I'm trained to just wait on QB forever, but because this is Superflex league and there's so many points that is granted to the quarterback position, I've never been more scared going into the 4th round without a quarterback in my life. So in the 4 and 5 round turn, I went Matt Ryan and Derek Carr. Those are the 2 best quarterbacks left.
They go quick.
They go quick.
Yeah.
But then you know what? I finished out my trio of wide receivers in 6th and 7th round with Tyler Lockett and Julio Jones. So I'm feeling really good about my team.
No, man, that's a better looking squad than mine. What I did at the beginning is I picked it to 1.04, and after Mahomes went off, it was 2 quarterbacks and McCaffrey off the board right in front of me, and so I just took Travis Kelce because And I decided, man, there's for people who don't know, there's 1,920 people playing this thing. So if you're going to win, you got to take some chances. You got to do some things that are a little bit different.
Yep.
I usually this thing's for charity. I usually do it as something where I can experiment with some wilder things. And so I went ahead and went with Kyle Pitts with the 2nd pick just to see if I could lock up 2 stud tight ends, and then from there, I mean, clearly I'm having to go with a 0 RB approach because, 6 or 7 RBs now off the board.
Right.
I also wanted to not get swindled at quarterback, so I managed to get Joe Burrow in the third, and then by the fourth round, it was like you. It was like all that was left was the Matt Ryans, the Derek Carrs, like Baker Mayfields. I just went ahead and went with Matt Ryan so I could have the Matt Ryan to Kyle Pitts stack there to help for the tournament. Whenever I got to my next pick, I looked at the running backs who were available to me, and you've been in this spot, even though it's in different place in redraft and it wasn't Scott Fishbowl. But sometimes you get to this spot where the best running backs available are like these, guys that you're not getting pumped about, the Kareem Hunts, the Myles Gaskin's, some of these guys where it's like, they call them the running back dead zone types of running backs. And to me, there were guys, Keenan Allen was still on the board, so I'm not going to pass on Keenan Allen in a PPR league that gives you half a point for first downs.
Right.
I ended up kind of reeling off a couple of wide receivers there. I'm just keep putting off running back. I got Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, and then I went with Tyler Boyd just so I could pair him up with Joe Burrow. So I have the Joe Burrow to Boyd, the Matt Ryan to Pitts. And then for the last 4 picks, I've just gone all running backs. I went Trey Sermon, Damian Harris, Tony Pollard, Gus Edwards, and I'll continue with those kinds of crappy running backs, hoping I get a couple that hit. But I like the tight ends. I like that I'm set at quarterback. The overall feeling of the team is kind of gross and kind of tilting, and it's just a good way to get us ready for fantasy football season, because Lord knows we're going to be tilting and hurt badly here soon enough across all our leagues.
That's usually how you feel about your team. You feel pretty gross about your team when you go 0 RB. That's what I've learned. Yeah,
for sure. Well, all right. So enough of the Scott Fishbowl stuff, but as long as we were talking 0 RB, I mentioned Trey Sermon as a guy who I was targeting in that draft. I probably took a little bit earlier than some would have expected. For as far as their ADPs, he's going kind of next to fellow rookie Javonte Williams with the Denver Broncos. How do you see those two guys stacking up, Trey Sermon or Javonte Williams in redraft?
Well, for redraft, so it's tricky. The 49ers in recent years haven't used a workhorse running back. I know they've dealt with injuries and things, but it just has not been working out as far as producing a workhorse in recent years. The Broncos love to feature a running back to do a lot of the work, and obviously with Melvin Gordon there's a hurdle for Javonte Williams, but I believe that Williams has a better path to success in year one. Should he outwork Melvin Gordon in preseason, or if, as we were mentioning at the beginning, it's easy for running backs to get injured. If Melvin Gordon goes down, then Williams, to me, I like him even more than Trey Sermon, to be honest with you. So I think Williams in redraft over Sermon.
What about staying there on that same team and kind of in the same area of drafts is Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy? Do you have Courtland Sutton coming off an injury and Jerry Jeudy putting out the TikToks of just have you seen these? Just like crazy. looking crazy. Alan and I were talking on the pod earlier this week about maybe Courtland Sutton needs to be moved down on our cheat sheet and Jerry Jeudy moved up to where those guys are converging just a little bit. How do you have them stacked up? Is there one that you would rather have right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you making that adjustment, moving Jeudy up and Sutton down, just because, there's always questionable. Everyone, responds to injuries differently, but a torn ACL is no joke with a wide receiver. And he's, Courtland Sutton's coming off of that. Jerry Jeudy, as you pointed out, looking amazing this offseason.
He's looking really good. Like we're talking about those ticks. If you're not a crazy online idiot like we are, like watching Twitter lists and stuff like that for all these videos, like you might have missed some of these videos that Jerry Judy's putting out. Like he's always been just so awesome with getting open and getting separation, but just seeing him in these drills and these practices, dude, it gets your blood boiling to watch football. It gets you fired up.
It definitely appears that he's ready to take a leap this year. So I'm going Jeudy.
All right, so you're high on Jeudy. I mean, you're by default high on Jeudy if you like him more than Courtland Sutton, because Courtland Sutton in a lot of these spots is going at a higher ADP. What is there one player who you're maybe much lower than consensus on? Is there somebody when you think about them, you're like, this is a dude who I just don't understand why he's going here? I feel like this is not, people, I see something out there that other people don't see.
Right. So I'm going to kind of, prior to last season, I was lower on CEH for Kansas City because I had concerns with him not being able to push the pile. And I even wrote a preseason article saying how I think he would compete with Miles Sanders for the biggest fantasy football bust. So I kind of doubled down on those two guys who the industry was just going nuts for. Eventually, CEH was getting picked.
That was smart of you. That was good.
I mean,
that was good.
CEH was getting picked as a top 5 guy.
Mm-hmm.
And even though in his first, national game, televised game, he did crush it. He had a great fantasy football game, but he was stuffed on the goal line. I was 5 or 6 times.
It was brutal.
So yeah. I knew that was going to become a problem. So I'm still lower on him, not as much than everyone else because everyone's kind of adjusted. I think consensus has him around the RB 15. I've got him outside the top 20, so I've got him at the RB 21 right now.
Yeah, that's kind of going again. CEH sort of feels like a trendy sort of player that people are saying he's going to be a bounce back. You just don't see it because of and the reason why is because people say, look, it's that thing's going to regress, right? That's what they say is the touchdown stuff's going to regress. What you're saying is no, it isn't because he can't push the pile.
He can't push the pile, but I mean, it's not just that. Like they don't need him. The Kansas City Chiefs offense don't need their running back to produce in order for them to win football games. So that's another big concern that I've had no matter who's at running back there. With Patrick Mahomes, obviously, like you want the ball in his hands and throwing it to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Like that is that offense. CEH is an afterthought to me. Of course, I think, yeah, he's going to have some great games. I just don't see consistent production or volume out of him, and that's why I'm a little bit lower on him.
No, lower on CEH and coming into his second year. What about some of these rookies when you look at do you think Justin Fields has any shot to start from week 1? Or is this Matt Nagy just so cockamamie and maybe, I don't know. Do you think that there's any chance that Ryan Pace, his GM, has told him, like, look, don't rush him. Like, if you don't rush him and we say that this is all part of a process, it buys us extra time because we can say, like, look, we need another year with Justin. You can't just fire us right now. I kind of maybe see if they play out the process like that and don't get him until later in the year and he starts showing nice signs, that automatically buys a very tumultuous a regime that finds itself in a very tumultuous spot right now. Maybe buys them a little extra time. That's the reason I would think that they would not want to throw him to the Wolves against the Rams there in week 1.
And that's the great point too, right? Do you want your coveted rookie pick to be thrown against, Aaron Donald and the Rams week 1? Probably not. So I personally wouldn't start a rookie in week 1, especially given that matchup. But who knows what Matt Nagy, where his head's at. I know Andy Dalton for sure is not the answer. I do expect Justin Fields to start by week 4 or 5.
Do you think?
I do. I do believe he starts earlier on in the season. Being a Cowboys fan, and I think you are as well, saw plenty of Andy Dalton last year. Enough, even with those amazing weapons he had, I saw enough out of him that he's just not a starting quarterback for any NFL team this year.
Let's see. So the Bears next year, I just want to pull up our strength of schedule grid and just see. It's so Chicago, where are you? All things that I could have looked up beforehand, but I just didn't. Let's see. Their first. So you think after week, well, they have a pretty good schedule to start the year. So they go at Detroit. Then they'll have it home versus the Giants, then at Atlanta. Those are three pretty good matchups for opposing quarterbacks and wideouts. Indy, who knows? And then Tampa Bay's in week 5. You know that Andy Dalton's going to struggle at home versus Tampa Bay.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe after week 5, that would be awesome. If Justin Fields could make his week 6 start at Carolina, who passed on him. That would be I think that's right there. You just wrote the book. I mean,
You
Yeah.
know, the NFL loves to be, like a romantic type of thing. And
Right.
what kind of storyline is that? You know what I mean?
Do you think that he'll start before Trey Lance? Who do you got this year? Trey Lance or Justin Fields?
Um, as far as starting earlier, I think Trey Lance probably has a better or an easier path to start. Um, given the situation over there, I think that they've been wanting to get Jimmy Garoppolo out of there for some time now. So now they've got the quarterback to do it. So the way I see them stacking up, though, for comparing, Trey and uh, Fields, I think that Trey Lance will probably start more games because, again, I think I anticipate him starting earlier than Fields, but I think Fields will have more fantasy points per game once he does start.
Oh yeah, I mean that's fair. Do you like I guess you like Fields talent better as a passer and just as an overall quarterback prospect.
I do, and also I just like how the Bears offense is looking right now with the weapons they have. So I just think he has a better set of weapons all around.
What about a tight end? If you were looking at these tight ends, is there a tight end that you like right now who you find yourself getting consistently? Maybe if you're doing these mocks, you're doing best ball drafts. I'm sure you're doing a ton of this stuff just like the rest of us. Two guys who I consistently seem to get, at different points in the draft, of course, are Dallas Goedert and Adam Troutman. Both have ADPs right now that I find very, very appealing. Adam Troutman, I think this is going to start to change, but you can get him in the 13th or the 14th round of redraft simulations. And I think it's going to probably start to change with Dallas Goedert too, that you can get him in the 7th or 8th round of some of these redraft deals. Of course, in best ball, they go earlier because in best ball, you don't have the waiver wire open to you throughout the season. And so people need to make sure that they have a viable tight end. You can't just, so they'll go earlier than that. But if you're doing the simulations versus like the NFL.com, the Yahoo ADP, wherever everybody plays, CBS, et cetera, ESPN, if you're doing it against those rankings that they have in the queues and the pre-draft ADPs, you can get those guys in those spots. I think those are both good values. Is there one of those that you like better?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, because of how volatile the tight end position is, once you get outside of the top 2, 3, 4 elite options there, it kind of becomes a crapshoot, right? So for me,
you say just wait, you just wait and take Troutman.
Like at that point, I'm gonna take whoever's going later. Mm-hmm. Goddard, as much as I like him, still the 9th round is somewhat early for me for a tight end. That's just basically that's how I draft. But no one wants to hear it. But Zach Ertz is still on the Eagles.
Yeah, people are acting like he's already dead and gone. And they're like, "Trust me, he'll get traded." And I understand they can save what $8 million by getting that done. But it's like, it's like what it hasn't happened yet, and it's and the fact that it will happen is pretty much baked into the ADP right now. So I could totally buy that. Is there a tight end who you find yourself getting with the same kind of frequency that I was just talking about that we're getting? Guys like Goddard and Troutman.
Yeah, we talk. It used to be a sexy name, not anymore. But to me, it's Rob Gronkowski, man. I mean, I can get him super late. Everyone's so quick to move on in this industry. Like we always just want to move on to the next shiny thing. You were talking about it with Zeke earlier, and Tony Pollard. Oh, he showed that he had some burst in him whenever he came in for Zeke. So Tony Pollard. And now everyone wants to forget about Gronkowski, who took a year off to, get
party. Right. And who knows what he's doing? Yeah.
Like he was helping himself, right? Mm-hmm. He was just getting better as a person. And then look what he does. He joins back up with Tom Brady. And it took a little bit heading in, into what the fifth or sixth week into 2020. Then he started playing like the old Gronk again, and he scored 2 touchdowns at the Super Bowl. There's no he's still going to be targeted by Tom Brady, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And Gronk is still a beast. I think he can still catch 8+ touchdowns, which is all that matters really when it comes to, later round tight ends.
I think you're the first person on this podcast all year that's come on here talking about Rob Gronkowski. That's super cool. I mean, you do kind of you do just kind of forget about him, and you do feel a little bit weird taking old Rob Gronkowski in a draft. But man, down the stretch last year, definitely didn't he didn't look dead. That's for sure. Okay, so I was looking through your Twitter timeline, and I noticed that you had this stat about wide receivers who didn't have the touchdowns to match their organic target output in 2020. And so here's the guys who you listed who, based on targets, just really, really underperformed on touchdowns. Of course, you tweeted this out from your Twitter at DominateFF. So it was Robbie Anderson, 136 targets, 3 touchdowns. Terry McLaurin, 134 and 4. Cooper Kupp, 124 and 3. DJ Moore, 118 and 4. Jerry Jeudy, 113 and 3. Tyler Boyd, 110 and 4. Boy, they hate him down there in the red zone. Yep. Russell Gage, 110 and 4. Cole Beasley, 107 and 4. AJ Green, 104 and 2.
Crazy.
Devontae Parker, 103 and 4. And Jarvis Landry, 101 and 3. So my question for you is, out of all those guys, you obviously took the time to put that group of players together. Yeah. Which one of all those guys do you think gets the TD regression in buckets this year? Which one is just going to go from having 3 touchdowns to having some kind of monster, double digit,
I mean, that one's super easy for me. It's Cooper Kupp. I mean, he had his
that would have been my answer too.
Total. Yeah, he had his lowest touchdown total of his career last year. The year prior, he had 10 touchdowns. Last year, he had 3. So it's got to be him. And now he's got a better quarterback in Matthew Stafford throwing to him over Jared Goff. So I think he just finds himself in a much better situation this year. And there's no doubt he's going to maintain that target share. So there's no reason for his touchdown numbers not to increase in 2021.
No more pesky Josh Reynolds BS either, right? Yeah. Exactly. So Stafford's going to love Cooper Kupp. He's going to love Cooper Kupp. I think that the other guy on here, another dude who I just 2 guys who are not similar players, but guys who I view similarly because they're 2 guys I fell in love with at the Senior Bowl. Cooper Kupp, and I think Terry McLaurin, whenever he has a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick there who's kind of willing to push it a little bit more, I can see the touchdown regression really coming for him too. But Cooper Kupp is the best answer. Okay. Before this last question, Nate, just wanted to remind everybody where they can find you again. It's at DominateFF. You can find his content at the Game Day NFL. You can also find his work at the Fantasy Black Book, where he'll be in his 4th year as a co-author there. Please go make sure and check it out. Mobilize Unite. Go follow our friend Nate Hamilton at DominateFF. Is it on Twitter mainly? Do you do any of this other stuff, or is it mainly Twitter?
Twitter is my main social media platform.
All right.
I'm on Instagram too at the DominateFF.
All right, there you go.
Throw the D in there because somebody else already had the other one.
You gotta strike quick when these new social media sites start up. All right, here we go, Nate. The big question that everyone needs to know. They need to hear from Nate Hamilton, the one player who represents the best overall value in fantasy football during these early 2020 redraft leagues.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to choose from, to be honest with you.
But you got to pick one.
For me, my one is Curtis Samuel. Right now, he's being drafted as the wide receiver 43 in the end of the 9th round. And to me, he's in a dream situation with Scary Terry stretching the field. Fitzmagic, he may not want to air it out as far, given how great the Washington football team's defense is. They're going to want to maintain possession. And usually when an offense wants to do that, that heavily favors the slot receiver. So I think Curtis Samuel is just going to ball out big time in 2021.